Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
All right. Mm, You guys know Central Park, right? I mean, who doesn't? It's iconic. Movies, TV shows, that big green expanse right in the middle of New York City.
Picture it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Underneath all that, literally beneath the surface, there's a hidden history. A whole community that existed before the park. A community that was wiped out to make way for, you guessed it, Central Park.
It's kind of a forgotten story.
Yeah, and it's a story that needs to be told, so we have our expert here to help us unearth it.
It's one of those things, when you start digging, you realize how much is hidden beneath the surface. And it really makes you think, about power, about progress, about whose stories get told and whose get, well, kind of buried.
So let's get into it. Let's rewind back to the mid-1800s.
All right, mid-1800s, New York City. It's a bustling place.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And right in what we now know as the heart of Manhattan, this community springs up. It's called Seneca Village.
Seneca Village, okay.
And it was a predominantly African-American community, a place where people could, put down roots.
So not just like a random settlement, but a real community.
Oh, yeah, a real community. People owned land, built homes.
Which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
Especially at that time. I mean, less than 1% of Black New Yorkers owned property back then.
Wow, less than 1%.
Think about that.
So Seneca Village was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. It was a haven, a place where families could thrive. They built churches. They even had a school. It was a place of stability, a place of prosperity. And then, then came Central Park.
Okay, so how did that happen? How did a whole community get uprooted for a park?
Well, in the 1850s, this idea of building a grand urban park starts gaining traction. It was inspired by these big European parks like Hyde Park in London.
Making the city more beautiful, more healthy.
Exactly. That was the whole idea. Fresh air, open spaces, recreation.
Sounds good on paper.
Right. But the reality is Seneca Village was right smack in the middle of where they wanted to build this park. And so the city used eminent domain.
Eminent domain. That's where the government can basically take your property. Right.
Yeah, for public use, of course, they have to compensate you.
Right.
But imagine being told, hey, you have to sell your land, your home, to make way for this park.
I bet that didn't go over well.
No, it didn't. It was incredibly disruptive. Families were forced to move, scattered. Their whole community was dismantled.
It's fascinating how the idea of public good can be used to justify things like this. But it makes you wonder, whose public are we talking about here? Did the people pushing for the park really think about the impact on the Seneca Village residents?
Well, the historical record is a bit fuzzy on that.
Fuzzy.
Yeah. There are arguments from the time, promoting the park. They talk about public health, recreation, beautifying the city.
Right, all the good stuff.
But they kind of romanticize this idea of nature. They talk about creating this idyllic escape from the city.
But ignoring the people who were already there.
Exactly. It's like their vision of public good just didn't include Seneca Village.
And that kind of selective vision, that idea that some people's needs or lives are just, well, less important. It's not just a thing of the past, is it?
Not at all. I mean, you see echoes of this throughout history. Think about the construction of highways in the 20th century.
Yeah, cutting right through neighborhoods.
So many vibrant Black communities were displaced, torn apart to make way for those highways.
It's like progress always comes at a cost. And it seems like it's often marginalized communities who end up paying that cost.
It's a pattern for sure.
Yeah, and it's still happening today, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at gentrification.
Right.
Neighborhoods change, property values rise, and longtime residents get pushed out.
I've seen that happen.
It's tough.
Yeah. There's this neighborhood in my city just full of life, family-owned businesses, generations of history, and then, bam, luxury condos, fancy coffee shops. The whole landscape changed, and not everyone benefited.
It's like those layers of history we were talking about earlier, sometimes they just get paved over.
Literally.
And that's why the story of Seneca Village is so important. It's a stark reminder that progress isn't always a straight line upwards.
There's always a story behind the story.
Exactly.
So we started with a deep dive into Central Park, but we ended up somewhere else entirely.
Down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. We uncovered a lost community, a struggle for ownership and belonging, and a whole lot of questions about progress and whose voices get heard.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does.
The next time you're walking through a park or any public space, take a moment to look around. What was here before?
Yeah. What stories are hidden beneath the surface?
It's worth thinking about.
It absolutely is. And that's what these deep dives are all about. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.